Barnes got out training with us today, and so did Ashley Westwood. So, got to see how they react to that. But we're hopeful on them too. Behind that, Bardo might get out there tomorrow, so we'll wait and send that one. Charlie Taylor's touch and go. We'd probably hedge on the side of caution. Johan's had a good week with us. He's been on the grass with us, so we'll enter him back into somewhat of a games programme next week. He won't be ready immediately, but get him playing. So that's good. Kevin Long's making progress, but won't figure the weekend. I think that's everyone, yeah. And Woody's carrying a bit of a knock, but we expect him to be okay.
Do you think those injuries have taken their toll recently?
I don't think they're helpful, but there's a balance to it, and that the balance is clearly that, this season I've spoken about the competitive edge of the group. So I'm not underestimating the players that have come in, but it's fair to say the team were going well. We'd had 2-3-0 victories, and they've had 3 losses. So on that score, then you think there's an effect. But I do believe in all the players. Whoever we put out there, I believe in that they can perform in order to win games. So, disappointed we haven't performed as well as we'd like. But I do think that, having injuries does put a stretch on your squad, especially with 3 in a week, of course, 3 games in a week. Detail, decision making, anticipation of the game, the understanding of the game, all of the things that are beyond the obvious, the ingredients that you need to put together to make sure that you can perform, first of all, and make sure you're performing in a manner to win. But it goes away, it comes back very quickly. We've been through it before. The sort of way I look at it is it's slightly different in the Premier League. I've mentioned this for years, is you have to take the rough with the smooth. You have to take a few knocks. You get some great results, of course, and some enjoyable ones. But really, the judgment is at the end of the season. That's our judgment, because I can assure you last season, no one was bothering about the bad results we had. They were just considering that we'd had a brilliant second half of the season and got 40 points and were secure again. So I bother, of course, by the way. I'm on about the outside noise. I bother because, I want the team to perform properly and appropriately for what we think can give them the chances of success. And we haven't done that. Only the last 2 and against very good opposition. Actually, I'll tell you a little life story while I'm here. Strangely, a bad day for us, that's for sure, last weekend. And the next day was 7-odd million people in London. I bumped into Jose Mourinho. That was a strange moment for him and me, but we were both correct. He said they were very good, and he's correct, and I said we weren't. So we were both correct. But anyway, it was just a life moment. I thought it was quite interesting. More than I've spoken to him probably ever. So we had a good 10 minutes, and he was very polite and very kind to my family. Just an interesting moment in a city of 7-odd million people or whatever it is.
Small world. Andy Carroll says that Steve Bruce is proving his doubters wrong. What have you?
I was going in pound stretchers, by the way. He was on the way to Harrods.
Andy Carroll says Steve Bruce is proving his doubters wrong at Newcastle. What have you made of his start there?
Well, from a management point of view, I certainly wouldn't be doubting him. Tough task in a different way, more because the outgoing manager, I think. I wouldn't doubt him as a manager. Everyone would probably know, you certainly do. I'm a big fan of his. He's been very, very kind to me down the years and very helpful to me. Certainly going back to my Watford days. And so, a top fella as I, think, both on and off the pitch. He certainly knows his stuff, without a shadow of a doubt. And off the pitch, he's a very humble fella in my experience, a very helpful voice sometimes, when you need a bit of advice and you can speak to him. So certainly in my impressions of him, in my opinion, I'm one of the best around for me personally, and from the point of view off the pitch as well, just as a very, very decent fellow, I think.
He said this week that there's always a storm at Newcastle United. How much of a challenge do you think that is for a manager when there's so much going on off the pitch? You're quite lucky. The Burnley fans usually seem pretty content.
I don't think, well, firstly about ourselves, I don't think the Burnley fans are content when we get beat. I don't think, expectation has risen here. I know some people would maybe not think so, but it has risen, definitely. There's always voices of concern. There's always voices of discontent when you're not winning or you're not playing well. I think that, using our 2 clubs, being Newcastle and Burnley, that the Burnley story is different. From when I got here and the club had come out of the Premier League a couple of years earlier, and everyone was wondering which way it was going to go, a bit of misalignment with the thinking of which way it was going to go. And then it's been part of my first 6 months, it's been a very, very strong and very positive story. So a different thing was Newcastle's had a long history of many varying successes of sorts, not necessarily always winning things, but big club, big fan base, and a lot of demand up there. Bruce is from up there, so he knew that going in there. I don't think that's a shock to him. So I just think every club has its own kind of mini culture within the club, in the town or the city, and I think that affects how the club operates. So if he's saying there's always something going on there, he's probably about right from the outside looking in. Here, maybe it's just the journey's been different. The expectation has risen, but it's risen with the club and risen with the truth of the club in a division that, is quite obvious, the truth of the club and or the truth of its place, in the division. And that is that we're not going to be giants of the Premier League. It's an ongoing challenge to be in the Premier League, and I think our fans have accepted that. I think Newcastle just look at it differently. They're a big club. They've spent some money. They've changed the manager, and an outgoing manager is very popular. An incoming manager is growing in popularity for the right reasons, doing a great job in tough circumstances. But he's certainly someone who can handle that job. I'm pretty sure of that.
Hi, Sean.
Hi.
Hi. Just on the team news there, is there a degree with, I suppose, someone like Ashley Westwood and Ashley Barnes, two important players to you, that you've got to, with the fixtures coming up, they can fast at this time of year, you've got to take no chances there and make sure they're right long term rather than rushing them back?
Yeah, it's a tough call, that one, because players' instincts are to play. And we've had times, particularly last year and this year actually, not so much this year, just recently, where we've had to, I've had to make a call on it because the risk and reward scenarios are quite obvious. Every point's important, obviously, and every win even more so. But equally, you've got to balance off going into this period, the number of games we've got and the challenge that, is just upon us. So it is a tough one with some injuries. Some are really obvious. Johans has been really obvious. It was a pretty harsh hamstring injury. It's going to take time. We all knew that. But some of the close ones, and some of the niggly ones, like with Barnes, it was a tough decision. We took him out. We made a decision. He wanted to keep working and keep going through it. We took him out, see if we could calm it down. So it's good advice from the physiotherapy unit and the sports science and feedback from the player, which is always tough because players want to tell you really what you want to hear because they want to get out there playing. And sometimes, I have to make a call as manager and say, no, just leave it and we will need you right for the next one.
Newcastle have got an injury doubt over Sam Maxim as well, who you and Burnley fans got a look at in pre-season. He was in the Nice team that I think he scored that day in pre-season. Just what have you made of his sort of impact in English football?
I think the obvious one, adapting, at first, and then seems to have found his feet the last few games and direct, can carry the ball, strong in his running, that's for sure, and kind of getting to grips somewhat with the league, which most players have to do when they're new to it. So a loss of sorts for them, but I think they've still got a decent squad there. I think they've got players who can change. Obviously, with Andy Carroll, he can change the whole way they play, for example. So I think they've got different weapons, and they'll look to use them, I'm sure.
We spoke after Saturday, and I think you said something along the lines of, we're not far off playing the right players, given that when we're without them, the results have suffered. And you said something similar after the Sunderland game in terms of those sort of fringe players that have come in and maybe not performed to the standards that you would like. Has that sort of changed your outlook at all on the competitive nature of the squad that you've sort of consistently...
No, not really. I think sometimes the team finds a bit of a groove and they get connections on the pitch, and sometimes when you have to piece it back together, that can take a bit of time. So I don't overanalyse that side of it. On any given day, when it connects, you're a stronger side, quite obviously. The team that was playing had played a lot together. From the second half of last season, it played a lot together. Then when you get them injuries, obviously you have to reforge new partnerships, new awareness, new team understanding, and that can be tricky. So no, I think all the players are very good players. It's finding the blend that can be most effective for us.
And obviously January coming up round the corner, how do you sort of assess that window, looking at it from your point of view?
Forever tough, we know that. The finance is always balanced here, so unless Santa's very kind, I don't think we'll be getting a wheelbarrow full of cash. It's the reality of it, and we've been through that before. It's not all about cash in the January one, by the way, because it's just tough. No one really wants to lose players unless the sums make it so. Not many are giving away players, that's for sure. So it's just a tough window, full stop.
You said then nobody really wants to lose players. I presume that's the state of play for yourself as well, given that there's some who perhaps aren't playing as much as they would like.
No, everyone knows we're a different animal, financially, internally financially, if that makes sense. The understanding of the club's finances from inside, we're certainly not under pressure to sell anyone, that's for sure, and certainly not for financial reasons. If things come our way that we think were for the right reasons, it could be done, we'd have to look at it, but we're not really in that process at the minute. We are looking at what options could come into the building, but as I said, it's a very, very difficult window to purchase players and to bring players in or manoeuvre players, whichever way you look at it, because of the nature of it. Everyone's challenging for some reason or another. Everyone wants their best players. Everyone wants to keep their best players. So it's a doubt that you get anyone in January. Not impossible, but it's hard. That's for sure.